What's going on, everybody? Sharpie360 here, and my 30 tips to help you survive Stranded Deep video has been doing so well that I wanted to put together a list of tips to not only help you survive, but thrive in Stranded Deep. So if you could hit that like button and let's get started. Tip number 1. You can craft Toolbelts to unlock the hotkey slots for you to access your items quicker instead of having to open up your backpack like this. So for the first tool belt, I can craft it using just a simple lashing, and that unlocks the first hotkey slot down there for me. And then if I wanted to hold 1 on the item to assign it to 1, there we go, it's now assigned to 1. And if I have a different item out, I can just push 1 and that will equip that item. You can see that some of the items are locked behind different crafting levels and also the prerequisites of the previous tool belts. So that one is the second tool belt, and I unlocked 2 more slots in the hotkeys. Hotkeys are a little buggy because if you drop the item, it clears the hotkey slot, so keep that in mind if you're using hotkeys. Tip number 2. Pick up and store a potato plant as soon as you come across one. Spoiled or not, they can still be used and are exceptionally rare to come across. There's also a known issue where the potatoes will not spawn on islands like they should, but you can use the custom island tool in the cartographer menu to fix this. Tip number 3. Simple rocks are one of the more scarce resources to come across, so keep an eye out for them and pick them up if you come across them and put them in a chest to hold on to. Most islands will have 1 or 2 rock clusters that you can mine for resources, but it does require a refined pickaxe to do that, which requires 2 stone tools, 2 leather strips, and a stick. So it's kind of a mid-game tool to acquire unless you happen to find one somewhere, which is extremely rare. Tip number 4. The cheapest shelter you can build other than the leaf shelter is the wood foundation. You can actually just build a section up high, raised up like that, create it. And then I know the sun is setting right now, but during the day this will provide you with shade and protection from the rain, but the rain doesn't really make a difference. It's just the sun that you can get sunstroke from, so this is the cheapest option to avoid that. Tip number 5. Bats, although rare, are not specially used for anything, so you can get meat out of them and that's about it. Same goes with birds. Tip number 6. I talked about the antidote flask in the last video, but there's actually 5 flasks that'll help you out throughout your time in Pacifica. So we have aloe that prevents sunstroke, breath boost that gives you more time when diving, gauze which stops bleeding, antidote that cures poisoning, and the shark repellent crafted from an antidote, empty flask, and a lionfish, giving you 12 hours of in-game shark-free worry. Tip number 7. Let's talk about sharks. There's 4 different types of sharks in Stranded Deep that you're going to have to worry about defeating other than the bosses. You have these 2 guys, which are the tiger shark and the hammerhead shark, swimming around trying to eat each other. I don't know if that's because they're in such a small water or whatever, but anyways, tiger shark and the hammerhead shark both, I believe, have 200 health. This hammerhead shark is speculative because it doesn't actually say. So those are those 2 guys. So the third shark that you'll encounter is a goblin shark. It's got this weird looking shape to it. I believe it has 300 health. So it takes a little bit more hits than the other 2 that I just mentioned. And finally, we have the great white shark. This guy's actually sitting still. So, great white shark is going to have 350 health. You're going to see it. It's going to be the hardest one to take out. This one can headbutt you and drag you and stuff underwater if it does get a hold of you, so watch out for those guys. Tip number 8. Farming plots' max water levels are determined by what type of material they are crafted from. Wood plots can hold 4 water levels, plank plots can hold 6, and steel plots can hold 8. Tip number 9. Farm plots that have dead crops in them can be revived from rainfall. This yucca tree isn't dead, but because this place rains so much, my crops never die. So that's a good thing to know. Keep in mind. Tip number 10. If you're going for the farming achievement Horticulturalist, you'll need 7 farming plots, each containing a unique item you can plant in the game. There's 7 different items that you can plant. You have yucca, peepee, aloe, ajuga, you got a wavula vula. You don't really use this for anything in the game. It was supposed to be for healing, but they didn't get that added in. You got the kuwawa fruit and the kura fruit, and then also the potato. So all 7 of those growing in an individual plot all at the same time will net you that achievement. Tip number 11. Leveling up the harvest skill will increase your harvesting efficiency. For instance, this yucca tree at a starting level takes 6 hits and maximum level takes 3 hits. Tip number 12. Building materials for rafts and buildings are cosmetic and do not provide any additional benefits. The cheapest raft sections you can make consists of a tire float section made of 2 tires and a plank floor section using only 2 wood planks. Tip number 13. Additional sails won't help you go faster, but the bigger your raft is will determine how many sails you need to reach the max speed. The game has a max speed set, and usually 1 sail is enough to reach that max speed. But other times with rafts that are bigger, such as this one, which is a 5x5 raft, require 2 or more sails to get up to that max speed, which you'll never go faster than the set max speed. Tip number 14. Adding a sail to your raft in the opposite direction of your main sails will make it easier to reverse out back to sea when you have run ashore to a new island that you're exploring. So a nice little tip. I can just pop that in. And I have reverse. Cool. Tip number 15. When building a new raft, if you stand up the first section on its side, you'll get easier snapping. So for instance, if I try to make this and snap it to it, let's see, it works kind of right there, but you can see that there's a lot of clipping issues. What I can do, though, is if you're having an issue getting it to clip on all 4 sides and you can't get it to where you want, you can try and tip this section up, stand it upright by grabbing it. Then you can grab your raft section, craft it, and add it on just like that. So a lot easier to fix the clipping issue. I know that until you get an anchor on one of these things and it kind of floating out at sea, adding new sections can be kind of a pain, so that should help you out. Tip number 16. New raft sections can only be connected to existing raft sections during initial crafting. So once you have it crafted, you can't connect the 2 of them together. So make sure that if you're creating new sections to add to your raft, that you do it and connect it at the time, otherwise you won't be able to connect them again. Tip number 17. Hold on to your steel for crafting shelter pieces and unlock industrial fashion, which is an achievement for building 10 furniture items out of steel. So these shelves and like this table, for example, all count towards that. You need 10 of them. Tip number 18. You can climb ladders just like trees. Hold the spacebar and climb up it. Same with climbing down. It's kind of tricky though, so be careful. Just like that. If you do fall, you can make a splint to fix your leg. Tip number 19. In addition to the base island tips I mentioned in my previous video, you can pick one that's also a good middle point to your map's POIs, such as these guys and then the battleship. This will make offloading your harvest much quicker. You have less time to travel. You wouldn't want to pick an island down here if all of your interest points are up this way. Tip number 20. Cargo containers can be harvested to give you a container wall section or a container door section. These items do not go in your inventory, so if you need to gather them from a different island, make sure your raft is big enough to support the item freestanding on top of it. It also takes a lot of durability out of your axe to harvest it. This axe had 95% durability when I equipped it. So we have it out, and then it has 87.3 durability. So it takes a good chunk of durability out of your weapon or your harvesting tool. And like with the container wall, with the container door removed, we can now grab it and drag it with us. And as I said, it's not an inventoryable item, so make sure that your raft is big enough to hold on to the item, and it will fall off if you're in too rough a seas. It could potentially slide off, so be careful of that. Get it to where you need to go, take it off, and be good to go. Tip number 21. When you get to a new island for the first time, there's 3 things that you want to always build. A fire, a shelter, and a water collector. Tip number 22. Having additional water collectors is a must for mid-game to late game, and then I'll typically keep a pile of palm fronds next to it and fill them up as needed as well. Tip number 23. The hobo stove is a waste of a barrel. Make the smoker instead. The hobo stove doesn't give you any additional benefits, whereas the smoked meat will never spoil, as I mentioned in my previous video. Tip number 24. If you're crafting wood planks and your inventory is full and so you have to set the planks on the ground, sometimes they can fall through the map, so try to set it up high, like that. I've had it happen before where the planks will fall through the map and you lost them forever, so not fun to have that happen, especially when you only have 1 or 2 logs to work with. Tip number 25. The lanterns and flashlights do not have power supplies to worry about, and then the flashlight will turn off when it's not equipped, but the lanterns do not. Tip number 26. Don't use your knife for harvesting resources other than animals. Anything other than animals will crush the durability of the knife. For instance, right now this knife has 99% durability, 97%. So it goes quick. And you really only need it to be harvesting animals and stuff, so just use it for that. Use an axe for everything else. Tip number 27. Fish are a source of meat, so avoid eating them if you're going after a vegetarian-based achievement. Tip number 28. Going for the gotta craft them all requires you to make one of every item in the game and building pieces available, all on the same island. It's best to stockpile as many resources as possible on your base and attempt to craft everything, even the stuff you already have crafted again, to be safe. The Toolbelts do not count towards this list as you can only craft it once, so there's no need to wait on those few. The boss trophies and airplane parts, boat motor and gyrocopter, and every single shelter piece that you can craft needs to be crafted on one island to count for this achievement. Tip number 29. The achievement This Sparks Joy for crafting 100 item piles can be done quickly by crafting and dismantling the same pile over and over again. So for example, flashing pile, pick them up, craft it again, pick them up, craft it again, repeat that 100 times and you got that achievement. Cool. Tip number 30. 100 days is a long time to spend in one playthrough of this game. Bring a book or something to pass the time. There's also a very super secret location POI to discover out there in the sea that I haven't even come across yet. So head out there and go find it. Alright, so that is going to do it for this 30 tips to help you thrive in Stranded Deep video. I really appreciate everybody checking this one out, as well as my 30 tips to survive Stranded Deep video that's been blowing up lately, so I really appreciate that, and welcome to all the new subs to the channel. Big ups. So make sure to like this video if you like it, and if it's helped you, leave a comment below on some tips that have helped you out in this game, because I know that I've missed a bunch of stuff, and I've probably got some stuff wrong as well, so feel free to correct me. And so with all this newfound knowledge, go out and thrive in Stranded Deep. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, sharp out.